Hello, welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast, which is also a video, so you can watch our semi-lovely faces as well as listen to our semi-lovely voices as well. And we've got a nice, big, strong, full team for you this week. This is our Oaks preview, Investec Oaks preview, no less. We'll also be talking Coronation Cup, which is a nice, well, a decent-sized field, given some recent renewals, I think it's fair to say. Although we've got one out of that at the moment that I was going to tip up. Hey, there you go. You avoided a loser. And we'll also pick out some other fancies that we have on the day. I am pleased to, first of all, welcome the man they call Rixie, Declan Rix, to the Matchbook Podcast. How are you, Rixie? Do they call you Rixie?
Yeah, I think kind of a lot of people don't realise my name is actually Declan, but it's been that way since I was about 12, so might as well just roll with it now, although I don't think it's very professional, but there we go.
What are you going to do? I like it. I like it.
Yeah. I sound like the matchbook dog or something.
It is a good dog's name, to be fair.
It is a good dog's name, to be fair.
But we'll keep. I'll throw in a few Declans just for good measure. That's all right, because Micheal's Deasy, so we've got Rixie and Deasy.
There we go.
Everyone here at Matchbook just goes by their surname, Rixie, so go with it. It's okay, you're in the company.
Maybe I'm just like Madonna. I don't really have a first name.
I've often thought you're just like Madonna, actually.
An idiot.
Sam Turner's got a first name. Just Sam Turner. Just Sam.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I go by a number of different pseudonyms, Tom, as you well know. Some repeatable and some totally unrepeatable.
Not Diogo. No, you wouldn't be that.
No, it's not Diogo. It's not Diego. It's Diogo. Yeah, the little wolf.
For those on the podcast listening to this, Sam is sat proudly with a Wolves shirt behind him after their brilliant season, which involved beating Tottenham at Wembley. Well done to you. I was there. Yeah. Great.
He sort of oversees everything that happens in the cauldron that is the Turner working office, Tom.
Quite right too. Let's get stuck into the Investec Oaks. We now know runners, riders. We know where they're going to be drawn as well. There'll all be all sorts of musings. We've had the Derby draw today as well, as we sit here on Thursday afternoon, as to where it pays to be drawn and where it doesn't. We'll cover that shortly. But Micheal Deasy, first of all, what have you got for us prices wise? Is it Pink Dogwood at the head of that market?
Pink Dogwood is sitting at the top of the market at 3.2. Medea is 3.85. Annapurna is 7.0. Maxad is 8.4. Manuela de Vega is 11.5. Frankelina is 16.0. Lavender's Blue is 18.0. And then you have Tarnowa at 28.0. Big prices the rest.
I'm going to start because this man has been very public on Twitter, publishing his own ratings, of course, for these fillies, because that's how thorough he is. He's told us that he's found the value on the WhatsApp group we've got going. So, Declan, what do you make of it? Is this a race where you want to look towards the top of the market, or is there a bit of value to be had in there, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of value to be had kind of to the top of the market and further down, Tom. You kind of mentioned the ratings there. I would just say they are very much amateur based and used as a guide. But I do it has helped me over the years just to get a handle on ability, which of course should probably be your starting block for most races. But yeah, look, I have Anna Peru in the top, and we now know Frankie is going to ride. That's a big positive. Although it sounds like Frankie maybe didn't have a choice if you read kind of what's been said in the press. But I'm not sure I'm buying that, to be honest. I think if Frankie wants to ride a classic favourite, I think Frankie rides a classic favourite. But we'll see. Yeah, look, I have her top rated. I thought what she did at Lingfield in the Oaks trial there was pretty good. She was green, but she learned as the race went on. But kind of what I really loved about her is when Frankie got her balanced, she went through the gears nicely late and she stayed. And as we know around Epsom, staying power is definitely a big factor here. So look, I think she's good enough. I think she's going to stay. I thought she came down the hill at Lingfield in good style, so she ticked plenty boxes for me. John Gosling needs no introduction. He's won this with the Gruda and obviously the Brilliant Enable in the last 10 years. So I thought at the head of the market, I thought she was the kind of value ahead of Pink Dogwood and those and her stablemate. But further down the line, I actually thought the Haggis horse, a lovely name, Frankelina. I think DC said she was 16s there with you guys. That's a big price for me. I think that price is probably a price reflected on inexperience. But as we all know, William Haggis, he doesn't overface his horses. So he's had a great record in classics. I think his first classic runner was actually a winner in the Derby, I think, not all those years ago. And he's obviously won the Oaks with Dancing Rain. She was really green now at York in the Musador, but I think that form is good. She's a lovely, fluent moving filly. I think she hasn't run over 12 yet. I think she's going to stay at 12, no problem, looking at her pedigree. And I think that price is just more reflective of her inexperience. But if Haggis is happy to row in, so am I. And kind of those would be my two darts against the field.
I got to do the Derby draw this morning with Michael Hills, who rode Haggis's winner in '96, who you mentioned there, and he's still pretty closely linked with the yard. He gave look, both of Williams' runners a positive mention this morning, and I know that Frankelina will have been put through the stalls again just to make sure she gets away that little bit better. I think the key point in there is, William Haggis could have run Sea Class in this last year. He chose not to because he didn't think it was the right time. I know he's got a couple going forward here, but they wouldn't be turning up unless he felt they were ready. I know Anthony Oppenheim was keen to have a go at the Oaks with a filly that was targeted at it throughout the off-season because it seems obvious. I think the step up in triple suit and she wanted to be quicker away. But I really like Maxad of all of them. I think she is that good that she's not guaranteed to stay. Siuni's got a good strike rate with his runners over a mile and a half and plus, but very few tend to go on and do it. He tends to produce top class milers, I suppose, as a rule. But she's got hope on her dam side. And we didn't really find out in Newmarket whether she would stay. So we think she's worth a go here. I think Deasy said she's around about 8.0, so I'd be happy to have that on side. And I'm quite keen. I'm quite keen to not necessarily take on the ones towards the top of the betting, but there's enough quality around at bigger prices that I think I'd rather have that on side. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Declan says about Frankelina. Obviously, she's stepping up in trip, which I think is a huge positive given her breeding. She can't afford to be sluggish out of the stalls as she was at York, but that was only a second racecourse start, so I think we can excuse a little bit of inexperience there. I thought she did really well to get back into the race, and those exertions told a little bit late on, but she still clocked a pretty good come-home time. The overall figure was very, very healthy as well. And I echo sort of what you lads are talking about regarding William Haggis. He doesn't overface his horses. Yes, this has always been the plan, and Anthony Oppenheimer has wanted this filly to run in the race pretty much since she won at Yarmouth last year. And you remember before the Lingfield trial, I put her up as my own anti-post bet in the race at sort of 33 or whatever. So she's still available at a decent price. She's not perfectly drawn, but I think she'll be dropped out anyway, and that seems to be her run style a little bit, slowly away and slowly into stride before finishing well. And I could see her sort of finishing to good effect down the outside of the field here, providing she handles the track okay, and she's still within hailing distance of the front runners, sort of turning for home. I think the one horse that I like more than anything else in this race is John Gosden's horse Mayada, who I thought was just truly exceptional at Chester. The overall time figure was good, but it was the come-home time, really. I mean, she did a quicker sectional from the corner than the Otis Dream, the 5 furlong sprinter. So it was no surprise, really, that she blew away a field that day. And I know the Ralph Beckett filly got caught in a bit of traffic, was a bit unlucky. You can make a good case out for her. I just felt that it was just a pretty sparkling performance. And the way that the money kept coming for her as well suggested that she was very much expected to run a big race, even though the post-race comments were, we didn't expect her to win like that, and it was a bit of a surprise. The fact that the volume of cash just kept coming for a horse that had won a 2-horse race at Chelmsford the time before, I thought was pretty illuminating. So she'd be my number 1 pick in the race, and I think I'd have a little go at Frankelina again just to top up the anti-post bet as well.
You mentioned the draw there. Anyone? Are you paying close attention to the draw? Are you thinking 1 and 2 tend to be considered not ideal because you've got that uphill run before you get into the first turn, more uphill than those wider on your outside. You may not want to be too wide either. So would you, if you really fancy one, draw 1, 2 or much wider, would it put you off? Or are we not too worried given that we don't get sort of 20 runner fields anymore, if you like?
I'd be really worried if I was drawn 1. Certainly in either race, really. I mean, it's quite a damning stat, really, in the Derby. because they just go such a ferocious gallop out the gates, and you can be just stuck on either wing. I don't like the one box, I've got to be honest, and that would concern me a little bit with Manuela de Vega, who, you know, you can make a case for on the Chester run.
What do you have to add to that, DC? And any personal fancy? Can you put up a fourth shout between us, just so we each get an arrow at the race?
I was very much with Max said, for the exact reasons you said. She's actually the highest rated filly in the race, and I thought she was absolutely brilliant the last day. And I think I agree with Franklin. I thought, like, she made up so much ground the last time, but Franklina was backed all week for the Musadora. She was back from, I think, about 9.0 into 4.5, and there hasn't been a penny for her for this. She's actually been on the drift, and Max said is one of the Haggis horses that's getting back. So that was kind of what pushed me toward Max at. And the other one I was looking at, I think this is just, there's a lot of good horses in this race. But I said I go for one at a massive price for a bit of crack. Tautiki, Roger Varian's horse. Now, she finished second last time to Annapurna. She was beaten by 6 lengths, but I don't think that was a terrible run. She was kind of given a weird ride. She broke really fast, then he pulled her back, tried to get a position. She was stuck out wide for the whole thing. Again, like, Annapurna just got away from her, but Roger Varian produced no shit to win the Musadora off kind of a bad enough run. I think she'd finished 6th the time before and came flying home. Now, Tautiki is 65.0 for a 6-length defeat to Annapurna, who's 7.0. I'm going to have a small bet in her as a place, but Max, that'll be the big bet for me. I think, yeah, I think she'll win.
I love having a bet for a bit of crack. I love that. We've all been there. And she's a big prize, as you say, 67.0 for Tortec for Roger Varian. Rixie, your view on some of that Irish form that we've sort of skimmed over, if you like. I mean, Pink Dogwood Salsaville form, it's very strong. Tarnor was come out and won subsequently. And so I think I went into, before really getting stuck into it, I thought Pink Dogwood has to be favourite. She's going to be very difficult to beat. She's bred to appreciate the extra couple of furlongs, and I suppose she has to head the market. But I just feel there's depth elsewhere. But are we overlooking that Irish form, do you think?
It's a little bit hard because, you know, it's so often, you know, we see this over national hunt racing as well. You know, they tend to go so slow in Irish races, and they kind of, you know, they build it up. And sometimes it can be a shock to the system when they come over here, get into a Group 1, and it's flat out from the word go. Look, Pink Dogwood, you have to respect her. You know, it's her connections more than anything. You know, it's the same every year. But I don't think any bit of her form is outstanding in any way. I think she's priced up in reputation, which is so much happens with the Aidan O'Brien horses. She's a full sister to Latrobe, who obviously won the Irish Derby. But look, I'm not totally convinced about her seeing out an end-to-end stiff 12 at Epsom. So look, with that being the case and her form being okay at the prices, I'm happy to take her on. Tarnawa at the last day, I'm struggling to get a bit of a handle on her, in truth. It was a very, very messy race that she won the last day. They didn't go any pace, and kind of in black and white, the form is decent because she beat Who's Steph. But I think her closing section of that day from 3 out was pretty slow, despite the fact that they went no pace. So that, I just wonder, has she got the class? But on the other side of that, she just might be a proper stayer, and she could really appreciate the end-to-end gallop over 12. So yeah, look, I don't know. I've just kind of, when horses aren't posting quick sectionals like that off slow gallops, I think it's a bit of a red light to suggest they maybe don't have the class.
Finally, Sam, just from a times perspective, DC and I have talked about Max Sad. I really, really like her. She's been my biggest bet over the couple of days that I'm going to have at Epsom. Does anything clockwise or anything that you've gleaned tell us that she is unlikely to stay, or she has more speed, or she has the speed for a filly that's going to excel over shorter, or do you think she will stay? I'm just wanting you to put my mind at rest.
She's done, I mean, just looking down the figures there, she'd be nowhere near the top on the ones that I keep, but she's done a very respectable figure considering it was a small field at Newmarket, you know, and there's nothing to say that she couldn't leap past the likes of, I mean, Annapurna is probably a very solid horse. She's done a couple of very solid speed figures at Lingfield, both on the all-weather and on the turf there. Frankelina's York run puts her right up there as well. So therefore, Blue Gardenia, if you're looking for a big price and an absolutely ridiculous sort of 100-to-1 selection, then Blue Gardenia wouldn't have a lot to find. Things didn't pan out for her particularly well on the Naze Mars. She got an interrupted passage, etc., but she still ran very creditable race. She could be one that would step forward at a huge price. And we've seen shocks in this race before. But funny enough, the one figure that I've got sort of sitting top of the tree is the Chelmsford run of Medea. And, in a 2-horse race, that was an astonishing performance, really. And I sort of questioned what I gave the race in the end because it came towards the tail end of the card. And I presume that the tractor had been around an extra time and tightened the surface up because I couldn't just believe what I've seen. But I got it a really good figure, and she backed that up with another very solid figure at Chester, combined with those sectionals, obviously, with her flying round the Rudy as she did and finishing off as she did, and that electric turn of foot between the 2 and the 1, which took her clear of some decent fillies in that race. That's why she just gets a nod for me. But obviously every horse that we've talked about could just improve immeasurably for stretching out to 1.5 miles under these very different conditions.
So Midi for Sam, and
there is Tom. Sorry to cut across you, mate, but there is one thing I'd like to point out about Medea is the last 2 times at Chelmsford and especially at Chester, she lugged left pretty bad late on. And that's something you don't really want to be doing down the camber at Epsom. So just that would be a little negative for me, because if Rab Halvin is going to be having to be on his right rein the whole way going down that camber with his stick in his left hand, she's going to be losing momentum. So that is the only thing I would say about Medea, is that maybe potential worry about kind of coming down the camber in the straight. But look, she's still a young horse. She's still learning. It could just be greenness, but that's just something I noted.
I'm delighted to hear you mention Blue Gardenia as well, Sam, because I put her into the WhatsApp chat last night and Rixie and Tom both laughed at me. So bit of good news there.
I know full well never to laugh at you, Dees.
Right too. Sam, that is something just on Medea that I've seen levelled at her a few times as to whether she the camber. I mean, you don't know, do you?
Yeah, you haven't got a clue. And there's likely, other than say perhaps Anna Perner, who's been around Lingfield, so you wouldn't necessarily have a qualm about her handling an undulating track. But Medea has been round 2 very flat tracks and has lugged left, so it does have to be a concern. I think it's a valid point, well made. Hopefully she'll be 4 or 5 clear by the time she starts lugging left.
Yeah, and it'll just be a case of commentators saying, Rab Havley just eases her over to the rail.
Exactly.
Job done. So both Haggis fillies getting a mention. I think we feel Francolina's a bit of value in there before Tortek's got a mention from DC. Max had as well for William Haggis, and both Gosden fillies too. That is as far as the Oaks goes. Now, John Gosden was going to have 2 in the Coronation Cup in the form of Coronet and Lati Dar. I was all out to make Coronet my each way bet of the day. She doesn't go. So there you go. She doesn't line up. Dees, give us prices first of all. Kew Gardens and Old Persian fighting out the top of the market.
Kew Gardens is a bit clearer. No, Kew Gardens is 3.5 at the top of the market. Old Persian is 4.3. Lati Dar is 4.8. Salowin is 11.0. Defoe and Miranda are 18.0. Marmello is 22.0. And Communique is 34.0.
Who wants to kick us off? Because I'm scrabbling for a bet now. Coronet's out.
I'll have a go first if you want.
Great man.
I don't mind having a go first. I think it's a really, really intriguing race. You've got 3 stellar acts really in Lati Dar, obviously Kew Gardens and Old Persian. So those days, well, like last year, 12 months ago, we saw Sullivan just narrowly overhauled in the closing stages by Cracksman, and it was about 20 lengths back to the third. It was a shocking renewal. This looks a really good, strong renewal. And I'm probably going to wimp out and have an each way bet on Salowin, to be honest, just because he's been around Epsom twice. He nearly got knocked over in the 2017 Derby when he was coming with a run. Might well have finished 5th, 6th, something like that in that race. I thought that would have been a nice performance. And then he was given a very, very clever ride from the front last year by Sylvester, but he still made Cracksman pull out all the stops that day. And, I just love the fact that he's been around here. He goes around here on rails. He's an uncomplicated horse. And if you look at various sort of ratings institutes and operations, they have that run that defeated Barsanti at Ascot What About Carlo as well? Almost up there as one of Sir Lewin's best performances at the age of 5. So I like the fact that Sylvester Kirk does extremely well at the track, whatever he seems to run, whether it be in the handicaps on the Saturday or the Friday, or even in the conditions races and the group races. He's very rarely wide of the mark with whatever he runs. Sir Lewin's got plenty of course form, won't mind if there's a few showers, is uncomplicated from the front, and he's sort of 7 or 8 to 1 with Oisin Murphy on. So for me, well, I can't really make up a strong case for either Kew Gardens, Old Persian, or Lati Dar necessarily, although I do probably favour her as the 3. Sir Lewin, who's been there, done it, 8 to 1 each way. What's not to like?
Do you think he'll get taken on for the lead by Communique? Do you think he will lead?
I don't think he's got a lead, has he? Especially, I think he can get a toe in from Communique. That's absolutely fine for me. I don't think he needs to necessarily go gung ho from the word go. To be honest, I'm quite happy for him just to sit in behind Communique and get a lead into the race. I thought he had to. Sort of last year he did it because he was the only sort of pace angle, and it was the best chance that he got of winning the race and exposing Cracksman. But I don't necessarily think he has to be ridden that way himself.
I think the best 1.5 mile in here is Old Persian. I couldn't back him. Back from Dubai. I'm not sure how this is going to be run. It's Epsom. I just want to wait till at these prices. I'd want to let. I mean, he's rated the best 1.5 mile in there, but I don't necessarily want to have him on side. And the same got Kew Gardens. I can't back him at that sort of price that you've mentioned, Dees. And Lati Dar's another one where I think she's not as good as I thought she was. I think she's very good, but she's probably not quite as good as I thought she was. So basically, I'm looking for something else at a price now. Coronet's out. What do you think, DC? What do you want to add to that?
Yeah, when I was going through this race, I actually came down on either Salwin or Communique, and I'm going to go for Communique to place. I know Salwin needs a soft ground. I thought he ran brilliantly last year, and I thought Communique's last run at Newmarket was great, and I think he's going to do something similar here. He's drawn in stall 5, so he can get out, grab the rail, get out in front. Like once he got going in Newmarket, nothing was ever going to pass him. I couldn't believe the price he was. I thought he'd be about 16.0, something like that. Like so, he's 34.0. You'll get a nice place price. I don't know, is he good enough to win it? Like, I went to the back Old Persian, but then I saw he got drawn in stall 1, which is apparently debt in Epsom, and he's very short. Kew Gardens is too short. Lati Dar, again, like you said, questions. I don't think the flow is good enough. I think Miranda and Marmello need further, so I just settled on Communicate to place.
Just to confirm, Derby-wise, 3 horses since they introduced stalls in the Derby have won from stall 1. None have ever won from stall 2, but an Oaks winner did win from stall 2, qualify a few years ago. So
someone was doing the draw at Epsom today.
Say again.
Someone was doing the draw at Epsom today.
It was great. Do you know, it was a great crack at Epsom today, doing the draw in the sunshine, struggling to remember what numbers had come out. It was great. Give us a good thing. Rix, then there must be one in here that you fancy. Go on. This is the good thing, because we can't find anything at a short price we want to really get after.
Yeah, no, I like this race because I want to take on everything at the top of the market. I think with O'Brien running Cypress Creek here, I think that's an indicator of this race is going to be run at a strong gallop. I think you've got Communique in there and Mirando, who will probably keep him honest as well. And obviously Salwin doesn't race too far away from it. But, Kew Gardens came to run here last year in the Derby, lads, and he was disappointing. I think he was 9th to 12th behind Massar. Kind of went back and I watched the race, and you couldn't say like he didn't handle the track or anything, but he really emptied pretty quickly early in the straight. So, look, I think with that kind of in the form book, and then he's coming here on the back of a pretty rough prep on ground that he would have hated at Chester, where reportedly he was dismounted quickly after the line. Maybe he was just very tired. I think we've got to take him on. Lati Dar I like as a horse, but she's a big, juicy filly with a big, juicy stride. And as we saw last year with Cracksman, you don't want those type of horses coming around here because it can be an equalizer. I like Old Persian, but I just wonder about him at a stiff 12 at Epsom with an end-to-end gallop. Will his stamina just run out late? And with all that jibber jabber being said, the two that I came down on were Defoe and Salowin. Salowin is a good horse in his own right. He was an unlucky sixth in the Arc last year. He, as we saw last year, and as Sam has already mentioned, he went around this place on rails when he was just robbed last season. That was a seriously good run. I maybe thought the track was a bit of an equalizer that day, and he was a bit flattered. But he's gone on all his runs later in the season. He's gone on to prove that he is a high class horse. So I think he is probably the main one. But I'm looking at here, Defoe is. What price did you say Defoe was, DC?
He's 18.0.
Yeah, that's a big price, lads. And I've never been a Defoe fan, but I'm looking at that price now, and I'm thinking with the worries about Kew Garden potentially at the track, with Lati Dar potentially at the track, I think he's definitely worth a swing. So I'm thinking a Dutch in the two of those in this race, and that those two would be for me.
We're basically all against the top of the market, so the tri-cast is probably going to be Old Persian, Kew Gardens, and Lassie Dark. No, we're going to get it right. I'm a huge Salowin fan. I prefer backing him when his massive price is nearly causing a shock, but he could be well drawn for everything to go right here.
He's 8-1, Tom. What price do you want?
He's fair enough, isn't he? You're quite right. He's fair enough off the back of last time.
He should probably be shorter than that, shouldn't he?
He's 11.0, lads.
Is he?
There you go.
He's 11.0.
I backed him in the Derby 2 years ago, and I maintain to this day he would have finished fourth with a clear run. I'm sure he was unlucky that day. But yeah, all against the top of the market in that one. Declan, you can't say big juicy filly without making me laugh, I'm afraid.
No, that needs cutting up and having as a GIF. That does, most definitely. Matchbook GIF.
I'm sure that's great. And then we'll come to any other business on the day. I want to mention one that runs in the 345. That's the Investec Wealth Investment Handicap over 10 furlongs. This Elector is well found. Sort of around about 4.5, I think at the moment, decent. An obvious one, but goodness me, good value for that win last time. There was a real sense that when it won at Newmarket from Sir Michael Stout, who was, I always find when he's generous with his time afterwards, he's quite excited about them. And I think this horse has been gelded now because, as he put it, he was never going to stand at Sandringham. And I think that there's a lot more to come from this horse. He's a couple of pounds is very good value, I think, for that win last time. So I'll certainly be backing that horse. Thought he's not officially my best bet on the day. I'll be backing Elector. And the other one in the Queen's colours, I think, has got a good chance of Seniority back from Dubai, who was really disappointing out there when he never came in his coat. But he's just a few pounds higher than his Goodwood win, £3, I think. I'll probably have him on side as well. And I'll be on the reporting camera for Racing TV tomorrow. So I'll be interviewing Ryan Moore afterwards, but at least I'll have backed him. So there you go. Any other bets on the day, guys, that we fancy?
There's just one at a big price which I like in the Investec Mile, which is Arigato. I think he's the only horse in the field that's got any experience of Epsom. He had a little run at Newmarket behind Leith in a small runner field where the race wouldn't have just suited him whatsoever. I think he's going to be a big price. Deese might be able to rustle up a tasty 20+ price for Arigato. He's nicely drawn. Josie Gordon gets on well with him. He sits at the foot of the handicap. William Jarvis has got a really good record when he runs horses in handicaps at this meeting. Juanito Chico, I think, was a winner for him a few years back before changing hands. I think there's one or two other horses over sort of 7 furlongs and a mile that acquitted themselves pretty well. But he's going to be a massive price, and I'll throw a few shillings each way at him just because he's the only horse in the field with any experience of the track, and he looks nicely drawn with Josie.
Bottom weight as well in that mile handicap. That is the 235. Rixie, you got anything for us?
No, because it's looking at the moment, I'm going to be potentially backing 4 horses across the Oaks and the Coronation. I'm going to leave it. Yeah, I'm happy enough with backing 4 losers on the day. That'll do. Fine,
good man. DC, anything else that catches your eye on Friday afternoon?
No, I'm happy. I'm happy enough with what I have done on Friday. I had one that I may have been looking at, but you're after tipping yourself and Sam are after tipping the same race. I'm not going against you because that never goes well for me.
What a great man. If there was one bet. Oh, by the way, Deese, well done on Phoenix of Spain, because I know you had that horse on side for a long while.
Yeah. After the wrong race, Tom, for the wrong race.
You're still back. I know, but you still had a little, didn't you? So that was good stuff.
After Beat LeBon went in, I was like, this is going to be one of those days now where everything I say, everything I want to win is going to lose, and everything I don't want to win is going to win. So
It can be.
You have to admit you're wrong when you're wrong, Tom.
Quite right too. I hope I'm not wrong with Maxad, who is my best bet on the day. Rixie, who's your best bet for Friday afternoon? If you had to have one, who would it be?
Oh, if I had to have one, at the price, I think Salowin.
And Sam Turner, best bet?
Salowin each way for me, Tom. I can see him breaking into the 3 and he might just cause a mini shock.
Look out. And for DC?
I'm going to stick with Maxad as well, Tom. Really fancy him.
Right. If you at home don't do the Maxad Salowin, don't tune in again because, well, please do tune in again because it might not happen. So hopefully we'll see you for our Derby podcast, which is going to be off the back of this pretty shortly. But that is it for our Friday afternoon Epsom Oaks preview. Thank you to the guys for joining me. We'll get our Derby notes out now and hopefully you can join us for that too. Bye-bye for now.